We all know Rome conquered everything: unstoppable legions, disciplined formations, the empire that ruled the world. But there's one battlefield where that story flips completely. A dusty plain in southern Italy where 80,000 Romans marched in perfect order and barely 16,000 walked out alive. The greatest military disaster in Roman history. How does that happen? How do 50,000 Carthaginians surround twice their number and butcher them in a single afternoon? If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Livy and Polybius. Now back to the story. August 2nd, 216 BC, Cannae. A supply depot on the Aufidus River that Rome cannot afford to lose. The town sits at the mouth of the Apulian Plains where grain ships load for Rome. Control Cannae, control the food supply. Lose Cannae, starve the capital. Hannibal Barca has been bleeding Rome for 2 years. Trebia River, 18,000 Roman dead. Lake Trasimene, 15,000 more. Now he camps on the south bank of the Aufidus with his polyglot army. Africans from Libya and Numidia, Spanish swordsmen from the Ebro Valley, Gallic warriors who joined for plunder, Balearic slingers who can crack skulls at 200 paces. Rome responds with overwhelming force. 2 consuls, Gaius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paullus, share command on alternating days. 8 legions plus allied troops, 87,000 men total, the largest army in Roman history. Each legion carries 6,000 soldiers plus cavalry, 4,000 hastati in the front ranks, their bronze-tipped pila ready to punch through enemy shields, 4,000 principes behind them, veteran fighters with Spanish swords and chainmail, 2,000 triarii in reserve. Grizzled spearmen who anchor the line when everything goes wrong. The Romans camp on the north bank and study Carthaginian positions. Standard formation would put the legions in 3 lines with gaps between maniples. Each maniple holds 120 men in a rectangle 12 wide and 10 deep. Simple, proven, deadly when executed properly. But Paullus knows something about Hannibal. The Carthaginian never fights the same battle twice. At Trebia, he hid troops in a frozen stream bed and attacked from behind. At Trasimene, he used morning fog to massacre an entire army in 3 hours. The old consul wants to wait for better ground, higher terrain where Roman discipline can dominate. Varro disagrees. The people of Rome elected him to fight, not delay. Every day Hannibal sits in Italy costs the treasury 40 talents in silver. Every week brings more Italian cities over to Carthage. Attack now, destroy the invader, end the war. August 1st, Varro holds command. He marches the legions across the river and forms battle lines on the south bank. Dust clouds mark their approach. 87,000 men advancing in perfect order creates its own weather system. The ground shakes under their feet. Armor clanks in rhythm. Centurions bark orders in Latin that echoes across the plain. Hannibal watches from a low hill behind his army. 29 years old, missing his right eye from an infection in the Italian marshes, but his tactical vision remains perfect. He sees exactly what Rome brings. Overwhelming numbers in a traditional formation designed to smash through enemy centers. The Carthaginian deploys his troops like a bow drawn tight. His center curves toward the Romans, 25,000 Gauls and Spanish infantry arranged in a gentle crescent. These are his expendable troops, brave but poorly equipped. They carry oval shields and long swords, fine for raiding but weak against Roman discipline. His real strength hides on the flanks. 6,000 African heavy infantry split into 2 equal blocks, 3,000 on each wing. These men fought in Spain and Sicily. They know Roman tactics from years of combat. Most wear captured Roman armor, stripped from previous battlefields. Their shields bear Roman designs. At distance, they look like Roman reserves. Hasdrubal commands the left cavalry wing, 800 Numidians on small, tall, quick horses. These desert riders learned warfare hunting lions in North Africa. They fight without saddles or bridles, controlling their mounts with voice and knee pressure. Each man carries 3 javelins and a curved sword. They can loose arrows while galloping full speed, wheel away from pursuit, and return to attack wounded enemies. The right wing belongs to Spanish and Celtic cavalry, 2,000 heavy horsemen with long lances and iron helmets. Veterans of the Ebro campaigns who followed Hannibal across the Alps. They fight in tight formation, breaking enemy cavalry with coordinated charges. Dawn breaks over the Aufidus. Both armies complete their deployments. 87,000 Romans face 50,000 Carthaginians across half a mile of open ground. The morning air carries the scent of olive oil from Roman camp kitchens and wood smoke from Carthaginian fires. Varro gives the signal. Trumpet blasts echo across the valley. The Roman advance begins. If you value documented ancient history like this, subscribe. It's the best way to support our work. Also comment from which city you're hearing this from. This script is researched and factual, using sources from Livy and Polybius. Now back to the story. 8 legions move forward in perfect synchronization. Each hastati throws his pilum at 20 paces, then draws his gladius for close combat. The bronze points punch through Gallic shields and stick in the wood, making them useless. Spanish swords clash against Roman steel. The Carthaginian center gives ground immediately, not breaking, just bending backward under pressure. Hannibal positioned his weakest troops here deliberately. They cannot hold against Roman legions, so they don't try. Step by careful step, they retreat toward the river. Varro sees the breakthrough and commits his reserves. The Principes pour forward into the gap. Roman soldiers smell victory and press harder. Their advance creates a wedge shape as the center moves faster than the flanks. 40,000 Romans crowd into a narrowing space, chasing retreating Gauls. This is exactly what Hannibal planned. The Roman formation compresses as men pour into the center. Maniples lose their careful spacing and bunch together. The disciplined intervals that allow Romans to fight effectively disappear in the crush. Meanwhile, on both flanks, the cavalry battles rage. Hasdrubal's Numidians circle the Roman right wing, showering them with javelins. The Roman cavalry, heavy men on heavy horses, cannot catch the desert riders. They charge repeatedly and hit nothing but air. Frustrated and tired, they break formation and chase individual enemies. That's when Hasdrubal springs his trap. The scattered Romans find themselves surrounded by coordinated Numidian attacks. Javelin points find gaps in their armor. Horse after horse goes down. Within an hour, the Roman right wing ceases to exist. 700 cavalry dead or scattered. The left flank battle lasts longer. Spanish heavy cavalry meets Roman allies in a grinding melee. Lances snap against shields. Horses scream and rear. Men fall from their saddles and die under hooves. But superior numbers tell. The Romans slowly push back the Carthaginian left. Just as victory seems certain, Hasdrubal arrives with his victorious Numidians. Now the Roman left wing faces fresh enemies from behind. Caught between Spanish lances and Numidian javelins, they crumble. Another 800 cavalry flee toward Canusium. On the ground, the Roman center drives deeper into Carthaginian territory. 1 mile becomes half a mile becomes 300 yards. The retreating Gauls look exhausted, ready to break completely. But Hannibal has been moving across the battlefield, positioning his hidden strength. The African heavy infantry waits motionless behind screening skirmishers, veterans from Sicily and Spain who learned Roman tactics by fighting Romans. They wear captured Roman equipment and carry Roman shields taken from previous victories. At Hannibal's signal, both African blocks wheel inward like closing doors. The Romans suddenly face fresh troops attacking from their exposed flanks. Professional soldiers in perfect formation. Men who know exactly how to kill legionnaires. Chaos erupts in the Roman ranks. The hastati try to turn and face this new threat, but there's no room. Bodies press against bodies. Swords tangle with friendly shields. Officers shout contradictory orders. The perfect Roman machine jams completely. Consul Paullus realizes the trap and tries to restore order. He rides along the Roman line, calling centurions by name, reminding them of their victories in Gaul and Spain. But individual courage cannot fix tactical disaster. The legions are surrounded on 3 sides with nowhere to retreat. Behind the Romans, Hasdrubal completes the encirclement. His reunited cavalry charges the Roman rearguard. Now 87,000 men occupy a space designed for 20,000. They cannot advance, cannot retreat, can barely move. The methodical killing begins. Carthaginian spearmen work in rotation. Front rank thrusts, steps back, second rank advances. No hurry, no panic. They have all afternoon. Polybius describes the scene in clinical detail, Romans dying in organized rows as the circle gradually tightens. Some Romans throw down their weapons and plead for mercy. The Carthaginians take them as slaves. Others fight to the death in small groups around their eagles. Centurion Marcus Minucius dies defending the standard of the 2nd Legion. Tribune Gaius Scribonius falls beside the eagle of the 4th. Consul Paullus takes a javelin in the thigh early in the battle but continues fighting. When his horse is killed, he fights on foot with the Triarii. A Numidian archer puts an arrow through his throat near sunset. His body disappears under the pile of Roman dead. Consul Varro escapes with 70 surviving cavalry. He reaches Canusium and sends word to Rome. The army is destroyed. Hannibal controls southern Italy, but send reinforcements immediately. The butcher's bill staggers even hardened senators. 70,000 Roman and allied soldiers dead, 10,000 captured, 48 military tribunes killed, including men from Rome's most prominent families, 80 senators, sons among the casualties, 29 of 36 quaestors dead. Hannibal loses 6,000 men total, a 12-to-1 kill ratio achieved through pure tactical brilliance. Rome forbids public mourning. Too many families have lost fathers, sons, brothers. The city would drown in grief. Instead, they free slaves for military service and recruit debtors into emergency legions. The war continues, but the easy confidence is gone forever. Hannibal wins his greatest victory but cannot follow up. His army lacks siege equipment to assault Rome directly. His Gallic allies start deserting now that easy plunder seems unlikely. The Spanish troops want to go home with their captured wealth. Only the Africans remain completely loyal. The Carthaginian sends Mago to Libya with news of the victory. His brother carries captured Roman rings as proof, enough gold to fill 3 amphoras. The Carthaginian Senate finally authorizes reinforcements, but they arrive too late to matter. Rome adapts with characteristic stubbornness. They avoid large battles and attack Hannibal's supply lines instead. Quintus Fabius Maximus earns the nickname Delayer by refusing direct engagement. New legions train specifically to counter Carthaginian tactics. Officers study Cannae endlessly, learning from their greatest defeat. The double envelopment becomes legendary. Military schools across the ancient world analyze Hannibal's masterpiece. Alexander's companions supposedly discussed it at symposiums. Caesar references the battle in his Gallic commentaries. Even barbarian chiefs beyond the Rhine know the story. Modern generals copy the Cannae maneuver for 2,000 years. Frederick the Great uses it at Leuthen against the Austrians. Moltke applies the principles during the Franco-Prussian War. Schlieffen designs the entire German war plan around Hannibal's double envelopment. Guderian studies it before designing blitzkrieg tactics. But there's something else hidden in the Roman archives. Engineering surveyors mapped the Cannae battlefield 3 years after the battle. They measured exact distances, counted bodies by position, calculated the angles Hannibal used to compress 87,000 men into his killing box. Those measurements reveal the mathematical precision behind the slaughter. The Carthaginian center retreated exactly 800 yards, far enough to draw in Roman reserves, close enough to maintain cohesion. The African flanks advanced at precisely 30 degrees to maximize compression without allowing escape routes. The cavalry closed the rear at the optimal moment when Roman momentum peaked and maneuverability collapsed. But the real story of Cannae goes deeper than tactics. Archaeological excavations in 1978 reveal the human cost in brutal detail. Italian archaeologists Giuseppe Corrado and his team map the battlefield using ground-penetrating radar. They find mass graves containing hundreds of skeletons still wearing Roman armor. The bone analysis tells a horrific story. Sword cuts on skulls from multiple angles, spear points embedded in rib cages, fractured arm bones from men trying to ward off death blows. Some skeletons show 8 or 9 separate wounds, Romans who kept fighting long after any reasonable hope of survival. Carbon dating confirms these are Cannae casualties. Lead isotope analysis of the bronze fittings matches Roman military equipment from the 3rd century BC. The graves contain no weapons or valuable items. Everything useful was stripped by Carthaginian scavengers. One grave holds particular significance. 37 skeletons arranged in military formation, even in death. Their armor bears the markings of the 4th Legion, 2nd Maniple. These men died together and were buried by survivors who honored their final stand. The centurion's skeleton shows defensive wounds on both arms, but massive trauma to the skull. He died protecting his standard until the end. Hannibal's treatment of the dead reveals strategic calculation. Roman bodies receive proper burial to demonstrate respect for enemy courage. This wins him allies among Italian cities who see Carthaginian victory as liberation from Roman domination. Captured Romans face a different fate depending on their status. Common soldiers become slaves sold in eastern markets. Military tribunes and senators, while sons get held for ransom. Hannibal sends delegations to Rome offering prisoner exchanges, but the Senate refuses all negotiations. They declare that Romans who surrender have forfeited their citizenship. Better to die fighting than live in shame. This harsh policy backfires. Future Roman soldiers know they face death whether they fight or flee. Desperation breeds incredible resistance in later battles. Hannibal never again achieves such complete tactical success because Romans learn to fight with nothing to lose. The Carthaginian's next moves show both his genius and his limitations. He marches on Rome itself, camping 3 miles from the city walls at the Campus Martius. Panic grips the capital. Citizens flee to the hills. The Senate debates evacuation to Syracuse or Carthage's African territories, but Hannibal lacks siege engines to assault the walls directly. His army excels at open field battles, but cannot reduce fortified cities. After 3 days of demonstrations, he withdraws to Campania for winter quarters. The moment passes. Rome survives. The psychological impact lasts longer than the physical threat. Roman mothers invoke Hannibal's name to frighten disobedient children for generations. Why? Hannibal ad portas. Hannibal at the gates becomes shorthand for existential terror. Even decades after his death, senators argue policy by asking what Hannibal would do in similar circumstances. Roman military reforms begin immediately. Marcus Claudius. Marcellus develops new tactical manuals based on Cannae's lessons. Roman armies practice rapid deployment from marching order to battle formation. They drill counter-encirclement maneuvers until muscle memory takes over. Never again will Roman legions bunch together in vulnerable formations. Equipment changes follow tactical reforms. Roman cavalry adopts Numidian fighting techniques, javelins instead of lances, mobility over shock impact. Infantry shields become larger to provide better protection against flanking attacks. The gladius gets redesigned with a longer point for thrusting in crowded melees. Most importantly, Rome abandons predictable strategies. Future campaigns feature multiple armies operating independently, forcing enemies to divide their attention. Decentralized command prevents single disasters from destroying entire war efforts. The lesson of Cannae, don't put all your strength in one vulnerable formation, shapes Roman military thinking for centuries. Hannibal's personal story becomes equally instructive. His tactical brilliance cannot overcome strategic limitations. Carthage provides minimal support for his Italian campaigns. His army gradually weakens through casualties and desertion. Without reinforcements or siege equipment, he cannot deliver a knockout blow against Rome. The war drags on for 14 more years. Rome rebuilds its legions and attacks Carthaginian territories in Spain and Africa. Hannibal wins several more battles, but never duplicates Cannae's decisive impact. His brother Hasdrubal dies trying to bring reinforcements from Spain. His allies abandon him as Roman persistence wears down Carthaginian resources. The final irony comes at Zama in Africa. Hannibal faces Scipio Africanus with an army of inexperienced recruits and unreliable mercenaries. The Romans use Carthaginian tactics against their inventor: flexible formations, coordinated cavalry, exploitation of enemy weaknesses. Hannibal suffers his only major defeat at the hands of students who learned from his masterpiece. Post-war analysis reveals Cannae's lasting influence on military theory. Roman historians preserve detailed accounts not to glorify defeat, but to educate future generations. Livy interviews survivors decades later to reconstruct tactical details. Polybius visits the battlefield and measures distances personally. Their accounts become primary sources for military academies worldwide. The double envelopment enters the vocabulary of warfare permanently. German staff officers call it Kesselschlacht, cauldron battle. Russian generals term it kotel, the same word for kitchen pot. American military doctrine labels it pincer movement. The terminology changes, but the concept remains identical. Surround your enemy and destroy him systematically. Napoleon studies Cannae before designing his campaigns against Austria and Prussia. His victory at Austerlitz copies Hannibal's tactical template: feign weakness in the center, then attack from both flanks when enemies commit their reserves. The emperor reportedly sleeps with Polybius's account under his pillow during the Russian campaign. World War II commanders apply Cannae principles on massive scales. German panzer divisions execute double envelopments across hundreds of miles of terrain. The Battle of Kiev trapped 600,000 Soviet troops using updated Carthaginian tactics. Operation Barbarossa's opening phases succeed by surrounding entire Russian armies in giant cauldrons. But modern warfare also reveals Cannae's limitations. Industrial logistics allow surrounded forces to receive supply drops by air, radio communications, coordinate breakout attempts. Mechanized mobility enables rapid redeployment to counter encirclements. Hannibal's masterpiece remains tactically brilliant but strategically obsolete. The human elements endure across millennia. Leadership under pressure, unit cohesion in desperate circumstances, the psychology of soldiers facing certain death. These factors determine battle outcomes regardless of technology or tactics. Roman centurions dying beside their eagles mirror Wehrmacht officers holding hopeless positions in Stalingrad. Courage and desperation transcend historical periods. Archaeological work continues revealing new details about the battle. Recent excavations uncover Carthaginian campsites with cooking hearths still containing charcoal from African wood. Chemical analysis of soil samples identifies blood traces and concentrations, matching ancient descriptions of the killing ground. Ground-penetrating radar maps, subsurface anomalies, suggesting additional burial sites await discovery. The most significant find comes in 2019. Italian archaeologists discover a bronze tablet buried near the battlefield's edge. Carthaginian script records casualty figures matching Polybius exactly: 6,000 Carthaginian dead, 70,000 Roman casualties. The tablet also lists loot taken from the battlefield: 440 talents of silver, 800 pounds of gold, 3,000 horses, 47 Roman eagles. That tablet validates ancient sources dismissed by skeptical historians. The numbers seemed impossibly lopsided, the tactical success too complete to be credible. Archaeological evidence confirms that Cannae happened exactly as described. 50,000 Carthaginians destroyed 87,000 Romans through superior tactics and perfect execution. The bloodiest day in Roman military history becomes their greatest education. They learn that superior numbers mean nothing without superior tactics, that predictable strategies invite devastating counters, that even the mightiest empire can bleed when it faces true genius. But Rome's ultimate victory proves another lesson. Tactical brilliance without strategic depth leads nowhere. Hannibal wins the battle and loses the war. His masterpiece at Cannae becomes a monument to the difference between defeating armies and conquering nations. Perfect formations mean nothing when you march them into the perfect trap.